I don't really like perfect movies. That's not to say that there are a lot of perfect movies out there for me to actually even hate, or that it's even possible for a movie to be perfect by all objective standards. I'm simply saying that by my personal standards, I don't like it when I find a movie that lives up to all of my expectations. And that doesn't really make sense, not even really to me, but I've narrowed it down to one theory. I myself am a young, aspiring writer/actor, so I'm constantly criticizing myself and looking for things to improve. So I like it whenever I watch movies that I think are good but could be better. And I just think it's fun to criticize things because I'm a sadist or whatever. So anyway, one of my favorite movies that is really bad but could have been good is Don Bluth's 1994 flop film, the animated feature Thumbelina. This movie was hated by critics. It tanked in the box office, and yet it still has a small cult following. Now, most of the members of this following are people who admittedly saw it when they were young. I did not grow up on this movie, but I did see it a few weeks ago, and I've decided that I do like it. But it does have a lot of flaws. It has many, 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 many flaws. Thumbelina, you either love it, or you hate it, or you've never heard of it before in your entire life, and just by these clips that I'm showing you right now, you think it looks really, really stupid. And it is. It's a very, very stupid, cutesy, mindless, shallow movie. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a vision. It does indeed have a vision. It has talent behind it. It has effort. Sometimes. Thumbelina, directed by Don Bluth, and songs by Barry Manilow. Yeah. So, let's dive right into this.
It's a great big world. Thumbelina, Thumbelina, Thumbelina. That's me!
Our story begins once upon a time in Paris, and I really have to give this movie credit for showing the audience exactly what's wrong with the picture in the introduction. Take a look.
La 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 la. If you follow your heart, when you follow your heart.
So, judging by just that clip, what do you think is going to be wrong with Thumbelina? If you guessed it's annoyingly cutesy, forced, and somehow manages to out Disney, but not even in a good way, yeah, that's about it. This is... He serves as our narrator/omniscient guardian thing who doesn't seem to have any sort of life outside of not really helping people so much as giving vague advice and taking up space. Also, here's a fun game. Can you spot the obvious shoehorned moral of the film?
Follow your heart, follow your heart. You're sure to do impossible things if you follow your heart. Follow, follow, follow your heart.
I'm gonna say follow your heart. I don't really know why. I mean, there's like this subtle subtext I'm reading into,
Oh, that is very nice, n'est-ce pas? And I like what it is saying. It is saying, follow your heart, and nothing is impossible.
But seriously, this song, Follow Your Heart, Giacomo sings it every single time he enters the movie. In fact, it was the theatrical tagline for the movie. Follow your heart, and nothing is impossible. I'm going to rant about this moral later, so I don't want to launch into it right now, but it basically boils down to it doesn't make any sense, and it isn't applicable in the real world in any way. Or the fictitious world, for that matter.
Well, then follow your heart. It will lead you home.
Anywho, Giacomo narrates to us, the audience, the story of Thumbelina.
Once upon a time, there was a lonely woman who longed to have a child to call her own. One day, She paid a visit to a good witch who gave
Whoa,
her
wait.
tiny
She paid a visit to a movie. That isn't how you tell a story. It really isn't. Seriously. I mean, yeah, I know they pretty much did the exact same thing for Beauty and the Beast, but at least the sorceress in that story had a meaning and a motivation. As opposed to this, where the old woman just visits the local good witch. You have one in your community, right? So anyhow, the local good witch gives the old woman a barleycorn, which she then plants, and out from a flower sprouts Thumbelina, a tiny little girl the size of a thumb, hence the name.
I will call you Thumbelina.
What we have next is a song that also sets the mood for the rest of the film. Annoying, bouncy, and trying way too hard. You'll either find it really cute or really irritating. Me, I like it, in spite of and in light of its redundancy and cutesiness.
Thumbelina,
She's a funny little squirt.
Thumbelina,
Tiny angel in a skirt.
Here's something else you might want to know. Every single animal in this entire movie has clothes. All of them. Every single one. How? Why? Why? Apparently this movie takes place in a universe where baby chicks are born with cute little hats and dogs. Oh my god! What is that? Is that supposed to be a dog? Why does it have a mustache? Also, let's take a look at these amazing lyrics.
first she's mending, then baking, pretending she's making things up. Thumbelina,
First she's mending, then baking, pretending she's making things up. Thumbelina. Thanks, lyrics. Without you, where would I be on understanding the main character's personality and such? All in all, the song is okay. It's on the meh side of the grand song scale. It's kind of catchy, and it's forgivably short.
Thumbelina, Thumbelina, Thumbelina.
Oh, I'll bet this is a strong, well-developed character. The next scene, probably the best in the entire movie, shows a moment between Thumbelina, voiced by Jodie Benson, yep, that Jodie Benson, and her mother, voiced by Barbara Cook.
Oh, no, Thumbelina. No. Don't ever wish to be anything but what you are.
Thumbelina's mother reads to Thumbelina several fairy tales, and Thumbelina is depressed that none of them are about tiny people such as herself. Thumbelina's mother shows her a story about fairies, which motivates her to pine for romance through obligatory want song.
I know there's someone.
First of all, let me get two things out of the way. One, the animation in this movie, while inferior to Disney movies that were coming out at the time, is still good. And I really like Thumbelina's design. She's so cute. Two, unlike a lot of Disney movies, the I want a love interest motivation in this movie actually has a semi-valid reason. She's a little person. To her knowledge, she's the only one in the world that's her size. Brownie points for that. As for the obligatory want song itself, I like it. It's pretty, and it's sung well.
Love, can you hear me? If you're near me.
Though the lyrics do seem a bit puerile.
After the rain goes, there are rainbows. I'll find my rainbow soon.
I'll find my rainbow soon. What does that even mean?
I wonder if there really are such things as fairies.
I wonder if there are such things as heterosexual love interests who just happen to be outside listening to my beautiful singing voice. Oh, hey. This fashion god is Cornelius, the prince of the fairies.
Cornelius. Well, that's a funny name.
You said it, Thumbelina. Anyway, Cornelius is hot, and so is Thumbelina, so it's time for a love ballad, Aladdin style.
Oh, I wish I had wings.
Maybe someday you will. Hold on tight.
Let me be your wings. Let me be your only love. Let me take you far beyond the stars.
I guess those were that special breed of flower, you know, the kind that are smaller than pencil tips. But yeah, this is easily the best song of the entire movie. And like the love song in The Swan Princess, it reuses the music over and over and over again. Next to Follow Your Heart, it's the most reprised in the entire movie. It even has a pop rendition to go with the credits. Ew.
We'll see the universe and dance on Saturn's rings.
Anywho, along the way, Thumbelina and Cornelius pass, whatever these are, and Mexicans!
Heaven isn't too far.
Heaven is where you are.
Pero qué voz más bonita. This voice is fantástica.
Mom, I love her.
So, as is the case with spontaneous love songs, our two romantic interests are now totally in love.
Do not forget me.
Forget-me-nots. Oh, I'll never forget you. Never.
Never, never.
Thanks for the emphasis, Thumbelina. Cornelius leaves to tell his parents, and our titular character goes to bed. But then, dead in the night, Thumbelina is kidnapped by a completely different movie.
Buenos días. I hope you
Wait,
sleep
what?
very, very
Can you
good and
stop?
very
Hey,
happy
I just
family.
want. Stop. Hey, I was just no. Hey, I'm talking. No, do not. Stop. Okay, go back. These are the Seniors España, led by Mama Toad, voiced by Charo, and her 3 toad sons, one of which is in love with our main. Mama Toad wants Thumbelina to join their singing troupe to earn her money. Thumbelina wants to go home and get married to that guy she's known for like 3 hours, but Mama Toad discourages it.
The scrubbings and the washings and the noses with the drippings and the sopas always boiling. The panes and windows falling with the diapers changing with the roof she's leaking and the enchilada spoiling.
Yeah, 'cause it's not like Cornelius is a prince or anything. Think of all the childcare you won't have to pay Thumbelina, because, you know, you'll be a fairy princess and have lots of money. It'll be horrible. This leads into our next song, On the Road, sung by the Toads, and in my opinion, this has to be the second best song in the movie, other than the obligatory Want song, which I'm not counting as a full song because it's really short. Out of all the songs, these seem to have the best lyrics, even if Charo's accent kind of distorts them beyond all recognition.
We are free and independent, we go everywhere, and we gacha gacha gucci all the way. We're gonna teach you how to samba and to ramba in la bamba, every number tambolina, say ole!
We are free and independent, we go everywhere, and we gotcha getcha Gucci on the way. We're gonna teach you how to samba and to rumba and la bamba every number Thumbelina say ole. Come on, that's like genius.
Come on the road, my little castañet, come on the road. I'm famous, you will get. I make you star. Get you small guitar. You'll be hot muchacha once I got ya on the road.
Thumbelina-cita, no one could be sweeter. Sing with Mamacita, we go on the road.
Nice leg flexibility, Thumbelina. Seriously, are those moves even physically possible? So after that thing, the Toads come up with a plan to marry Thumbelina off to one of the sons. His name is Grundle or something, I don't know. To keep the money she makes in the family. They force her onto a lily pad and sail off to get a priest.
Doesn't anybody care what I think? Ugh.
Do you know think? Do you know what think is? While on the lily pad, oh god. So Giacomo the bird shows up and asks how he may be of assistance.
I must get off this lily pad, but that's impossible.
Looks like somebody's an active protagonist.
Oh, my. Well, that was easy.
I know, it's almost like it wasn't impossible. Then there's some nonsense with a waterfall and blah blah blah. She gets saved by fishes with hats and these things. She tells them about her plans to marry Prince Cornelius, and Giacomo offers to find where he lives.
Where does the prince live?
Oh, he lives in the Vale of the Fairies.
Calm down, Betty Boop. She also expresses a want to return home to be with her mother and the hot stuff she picked up last night, but lacks the motivation to do so.
It's impossible.
So Giacomo replies with,
You're sure to do impossible things if you follow your heart.
a musical number.
If you have to journey far, here's a little trick. You don't need a guiding star. Trust your ticker. Get there quicker.
Okay, two things. One, this song by itself isn't really that bad. I'd say it's only slightly better than the title song. It's catchy-ish. But here's the main problem with this song, and the entire message, kind of. If you, no movie attached, read the sentence, "Follow your heart, it will lead you home," you would assume it was supposed to be taken metaphorically. Follow your inner emotions and instincts, and it will take you to a place of emotional fulfillment. In other words, do what you truly believe to be right, and you will find satisfaction. But in the film, when Giacomo says that, it literally means follow your heart, you'll find your house. Which makes no sense.
When you follow, just trust the swallow and always follow your heart.
So Giacomo sends Thumbelina off with 3 of those, whatever they are, to find her home. He technically could, have her get on his back so we could, fly her back to her house, but he doesn't because plot. Meanwhile, Cornelius revisits Thumbelina's house and learns from the not dog that Thumbelina was stolen away. He returns to the Vale of the Fairies to meet with his parents about the matter.
First you buzzed in here the other day on that wretched thing and announced in front of the entire court that you'd found the girl of your dreams. And now you've come back to say she's vanished.
Kidnapped, Mother. She's been kidnapped.
This is the king and the queen of the fairies. In a previous scene, we learned that the fairies actually control the seasons, and that they need to put a hold on the winter so that Cornelius can find his romantic interest before she dies.
I'll find her!
Oh, my poor boy. Colbert, my love, we can't delay the frost for more than a day.
Lady, it just turned fall like 8 hours ago. I think you can buy some time. Meanwhile, the Toad guy is all bummed out, and his brothers are like, "LOL, Thumbelina, no marry you." And he's all, "Thumbelina, yes, marry me." And he sets off to find our heroine. Also, remember Mama Toad? Yeah, we never see her again. We see plenty of her son. Oh, we see plenty of her son. But her character isn't the main antagonist of the Toad family. He is. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I think we all know that when you were watching this scene, you were mostly focused on this guy, right? Don't lie. Don't lie. So Thumbelina and the whatevers continue to search for Thumbelina's house when...
Hiya, Toots!
Okay, no. No, Gilbert Gottfried, no. This movie was moderately passable until now. Get out of the movie. Get out. It has too many problems already. No. Shoo. Shoo. I mean, seriously, did Don Bluth watch Aladdin and say, "Yes, this parrot. This parrot is what made this movie successful. Get me the man with this voice."
What's your hurry, Toots? Relax. Take a load off.
Oh, I wish you wouldn't do that.
The next 6.5 minutes of the film are as follows. Mr. Beetle is all like, "You're hot, so you should sing at my club." So he takes her to his Care Bears Acid Land, where Thumbelina doesn't sing at all. Instead, beetles dance around her and harp on how hot she is. Eventually, all her clothes fall off, and everybody starts singing about how ugly she is, so Mr. Beetle throws her out. We cut to her moping around later, and she's all like, "I'm ugly," and Giacomo is like, "No, you are not," and she's like, "Oh yeah," and they never speak of any of this ever again. Okay, I'll go through this again. Mr. Beetle, as I said before, thinks Thumbelina is totally hot and wants her to sing at the Beetle Ball, an establishment of unspecified characteristics. Thumbelina agrees on the condition that, afterwards, he flies her high above the floor so that she can locate her house. Because it's not like these guys are able to fly or anything. You know, Thumbelina, I'm going to answer my own question from before and say you don't know what think is. So Mr. Beetle Gottfried takes her to the Beetle Ball, which leads into our next song, "You're Beautiful, Baby." And though the Razzies will beg to differ, I gotta say this is the worst song in the film. It's a rap number, but, it's not even real rap. It's like that super white Broadway rap, and it's just... And while the prospect of Gilbert Gottfried rapping might enthrall you to no end, it isn't even Gilbert Gottfried singing. It's Randy Crenshaw. I guess this song was just way too difficult for Gottfried to perform?
Baby, it's the Beetle Ball, and bugs are crawling to get in. When they hear that beetle beat, those beetle feet start to spin.
Come on, Don Bluth, you're going to the Rockadoodle place. Don't go to the Rockadoodle place. Oh, God. Must I repeat it? The song is bad. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. It's just at the right level of awesome campy goodness. It's so bad that it's, well, not good. It's good, bad, I don't know.
Oh, my
Also, what kind of establishment is this? What kind of place is it where you just sit around and sing about how pretty someone on stage is? I mean, this would kind of work if it were like just men in the audience, kind of like a 10 and under strip show representation. But women are there too, with opera glasses. Is this like surrealist beetle art? What is going on here? You're in the Rockadoodle place, Don Bluth. Are you proud of yourself? But really, when you think about it, there's some good dramatic potential for this scene. She's revered by an audience for being beautiful, and when she reveals her true look, she's deemed ugly. So, how are we going to get that dress off of her?
Let's wing it!
I can't wing it. I don't have any wings. I'm getting dizzy.
The creativity being put into this animation is flabbergasting.
Would you look at that? She ain't got no wings. Good gracious me, what are those things? She ain't got no feeler. No feeler. She ain't got no shell. Do tell. She got scrawny legs and knobby knees. For all we know, the gal's got fleas. She can't even fly. No, that won't do. So say goodbye. She's not for you. I'm sorry, Toots. I guess you're too ugly.
I'm ugly?
I've never heard my radiant beauty being put like that before. So, you know the drill. She's sad, Giacomo shows up.
Does Prince Cornelius think you are ugly?
No. He thinks I'm beautiful.
And so you are.
Again, the whole Thumbelina thinks she's ugly concept would be interesting if it applied to the entire movie, but it's never brought up again. I mean, Mr. Beetle is a recurring character, he has a subplot with the toad guy we don't care about, but Thumbelina's self-esteem issue is tossed out the window less than 2 minutes after it's introduced. Also, here's a fair warning. For a little bit, the movie's gonna be a bit jumpy and unfocused, so heads up. So anyway, the next part of the movie centers around everybody running around trying to get Thumbelina's tiny little bosom to the altar. During this time, Giacomo is searching for the Veil of the Fairies, and Cornelius is searching for our heroine. Both of their searches are at a grave stake, for the winter is fast approaching. I'm not a meteorologist, but I'm pretty sure that's not how seasons work. Also, Giacomo gets a thorn stuck in his wing. Tension! So much tension. On his search, Cornelius comes across a den of... I'm just gonna call them knot bugs from now on.
I'm looking for a beautiful young woman. Her name is Thumbelina.
Thumbelina's gone.
Gone? Where? Where did she go?
The beetle took her away. There's a big toad after her, too.
All these storylines keep chasing after her, but she ain't having any of that plot nonsense.
We cut to the Toad, who has found Mr. Beetle and demands to know where Thumbelina is. I think the exchanges between these two are supposed to be funny. I don't know.
We didn't hit it off too good, so I let her go. She's not my type. She's an ugly type. I don't like ugly.
She is beautiful.
Whatever you say.
Mr. Beetle suggests that they capture the fairy prince and use him to set up a trap.
You know, get her to come to you.
Nab the prince.
And set up a trap.
Nab the prince.
Yes, nab the prince and set up a trap. Do you speak English?
Do you speak French? This exchange ends with the Toad taking Mr. Beetle's wings and instructing him to find the fairy prince. So blah blah blah, Cornelius gets frozen in the ice, and of course the Beetle just happens to walk right by him.
Hey, Beetle! This guy's the prince!
I know a fairy prince when I see one. And blah blah blah, they take him with them. Elsewhere, our heroine wanders the cold forest floor, shaken, battered, and broken from the no conflict. She resigns from her optimism and gives up on her endeavors altogether.
I will never find my way home. It's impossible.
Maybe you should follow your heart. We see now that Thumbelina's mother has fallen into a great depression over the loss of her daughter.
I know there's someone, who's sure to find her.
Where's your local good witch now, lady?
She'll find her rainbow soon.
What does that mean? I'll find my rainbow soon. What does that mean?
Troubles behind her, I will find her.
You know, you're acting like you've exhausted all efforts possible to find your daughter, but we saw earlier that she's literally 4 feet away from your house. Seriously, don't you think you might want to check the backyard before the winter comes on? You know how those French seasons all seem to last for about 6 hours, so this would seem like it'd be your first priority.
Where's Thumbelina? Maybe she left through that window her bed was sitting right next to. Nah.
Feeling better, my dear?
Thumbelina awakens underground, in the hole of a rodent named Miss Fieldmouse, voiced by Carol Channing. This character is described on the Don Bluth wiki as ostensibly kind, unbearably beautiful, and insanely sexy. To each their own, I guess. Oh yeah, Miss Fieldmouse, shake it. This character is both a gossip
You were engaged to the fairy prince, Cornelius, I believe.
and a sadist. And I don't mean that like she has a few weird lines, so I'm making a joke about how she's a sadist. No, I mean she is a sadist. That is her main character trait.
Winter has killed everything.
Wonderful story.
Though it is played kind of subtly, so it is a bit creepy. Especially with those eyes.
Never mind that he can't see. That's all the better.
Miss Fieldmouse explains to the ever-ditzy Thumbelina that Cornelius
Was found stone cold frozen dead in the snow.
actually was the ice, but whatevs.
But of course you knew that.
No. Cornelius. No.
That's so sad.
Oh look, a contrived subplot. So our plot takes an oddly decent turn, and the story itself becomes a lot less WTF. In fact, there's even a bit of a dramatic tension when Thumbelina is faced with the knowledge that her boyfriend is dead. It's not enough to save the movie, but it's a welcome plot advancement nonetheless.
Cornelius was looking for me. That's what must have happened.
Hey look, it's that conflict thing we've been looking for. I mean, sure, it's internal, but it's something. So Miss Fieldmouse takes Thumbelina to the home of another eccentric rodent, her rich megalomaniac neighbor Mr. Mole, voiced by John Hurt. Yes, Whovians, that John Hurt.
How do you do, Miss Thumbelina? Pleased to make your acquaintance.
For the rest of the movie, a time amounting to about 20 minutes, these two will serve as our new antagonists, which is odd because though they aren't the most interesting characters, they are the most fitting. Not only that, but the performances by Jodie Benson and John Hurt are arguably the best in the film, which is saying something because they don't really have much to work with. This holds especially true for Mr. Hurt, as his voice seems to be the nicest to listen to in the film.
Dreadful thing, the sun.
This is also strange because most other adaptations of the story Thumbelina put the mole in the role of the main antagonist, unlike this movie where he just shows up at the last minute with his greediness and his bug-hunting hobbies, a character trait that goes absolutely nowhere.
You know what that guy does to beetles? Do you have any idea what he does? He stuffs them. He stuffs them and he pins them on his walls. Where?
In fact, this movie really doesn't have antagonists, period, just grumpy people. So anyways, Thumbelina gets introduced to Mr. Mole, and of course he thinks she's totally hot, though there is a bit of a cultural difference.
I love the light.
I hate it. End of story.
Story. Thumbelina, tell Mr. Mole a story.
And then this happens.
Once there was the sun, bright and warm and wonderful, shining like the love within my heart. Now there's no more sun. Winter has killed everything, and although it's dark December, forever I'll remember some.
So then, allons-y, Mr. Mole takes the two women on a tour of his home. Along the way, he tells them about a dead bird that fell into his hole the day before. And, of course...
There it is.
Giacomo, my dear friend.
My dear friend that I had that conversation with at one time.
Yes, Giacomo is the dead bird. No, he unfortunately is not dead. He is simply comatose because... plot. Looks like somebody forgot to follow his heart. Meanwhile...
Miss Fieldmouse, you know I have been meaning to take a wife for some time now.
What a lovely idea.
And I wonder if...
Yes?
If I could ask you to help me persuade Miss Thumbelina to be my wife, I will reward you handsomely.
So Miss Fieldmouse accepts the offer, and she and our heroine return to her respective hole. And then there's this other scene, and I really don't want to be away from the scenes underground for far too long, so here's the dealio. Mr. Beetle brings the block of Cornelius to the Toad, and then there's this really contrived conversation where the Toad is like, he is frozen and he's dead, so we can't use him in our non-specific evil plan for non-specific reasons. And then the Beetle is all like, I'll take you to where Thumbelina is, because, you know, I was outside the field mouse's hole for non-specific reasons. And then they leave. Then the Knot Bugs are all, we need to thaw out the Fairy Prince, and then they thaw out the Fairy Prince, yay. Elsewhere, Miss Fieldmouse persists in trying to convince Thumbelina to join the rich Mr. Mole in holy matrimony, but Thumbelina isn't too convinced.
How could I possibly marry Mr. Mole? I don't love him.
Which means we must convince her through musical number. This time, the song is entitled Marry the Mole. Fun fact, this song won the 1995 Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Original Song, the only award the movie would ever receive. Take a listen.
The bride is a lovely little ditty, but marrying for love is a foolish thing to do, 'cause love won't pay the mortgage or put porridge in your bowl. Dearie, marry the mole.
Again with the love no equal money analogy. Thumbelina, Cornelius is a prince. He can provide. Oh, and then there's this part of the song.
Romeo and Juliet were very much in love when they were wed. They honored every vow. So where are they now? They're dead. Dead. Very, very dead.
It would appear Miss Fieldmouse has an odd view of love stories, no?
Oh, I love love stories, don't you?
Especially ones where people die and end up very, very dead.
Very, very dead.
I like your little dance, Thumbelina. Are you even paying attention, or are you just like, meh, all these forest animals and their tacky production numbers, I'm just gonna sit this one out. In my opinion, the song isn't the worst number in the film. It's funny bad, and Carol Channing sells it at least.
Just think of all the ways that you can decorate a home.
Take my advice, I'll bring the rice.
Dearie, marry the mole. Marry the mole. Marry that mole. M is for money. Oh, L-E.
So as our not bug codependents thaw out our secondary love interest,
Does he know Mr. Mole's gonna marry Thumbelina?
how do you know that? Thumbelina goes back to the comatose Jacquimo, where the story gets all emo on us again.
I know now. There's no place in this big world for little people.
I mean, other than all of those places I've been to that are for little people, there's nowhere I can go.
You are shocking.
Jacquimo? Jacquimo? You're awake!
Be still, my heart. So, after Jacquimo awakens, it doesn't take long at all for him to remind us of that moral. What was it again? Follow your something? I don't remember.
Remember, you should do impossible things.
Stop! Stop it, Jacquimo!
And for the first time in the film, Thumbelina becomes relatable.
Oh, Jacquimo. Stop torturing me.
So, to sum it up, Thumbelina's like, well, my boyfriend is dead, all of my friends and family are either lost forever or totally inept and unhelpful. It's winter, and my chances of returning home safely are slim to none, and there's a guy who wants me to marry him, and he's totally rich, so YOLO, I'm gonna marry the mole. But what else to interrupt her wedding YOLO swag than... Convenient flashbacks, aren't they convenient?
There's something I'm forgetting to do, some moral or something. I can't quite recall. Nothing is impossible if I follow my wits and common sense. No, that's not it.
Do not forget me.
Forget-me-nots. Oh, I'll never forget you. Never.
Never, never.
Oh yeah, I forgot to follow my heart. Whoops.
I cannot marry Mr. Mole. I don't love him.
What?
Thumbelina.
Do you want to end up very, very dead?
Very, very dead.
So then the Toad Guy and Mr. Beetle show up, proclaiming that the Toad totally called dib.
No! I know marry you. I go home.
No!
Go away.
Wow, mocking the dialect of a Latino person who has done you no harm. Wow, Thumbelina. Low. Seriously, am I the only one with a problem with this? I mean, yeah, the toad pursues Thumbelina throughout the movie, but she never knew about that. In fact, the toad spends the entire film defending her.
She's an ugly type. I don't like ugly.
She is beautiful. We go rescue Thumbelina.
And this is how she responds to that?
Oh, wait!
Our heroine, ladies and gentlemen.
Hiya, toots.
I'm not your toots.
Woo, snap, you go, girl. Oh, hey, our romantic interest.
We meet at last, Mr. Toad. Show me what you got.
Bye, romantic interest. So Thumbelina runs away and is pursued by everyone, including the congregation for some reason. But then...
The sun is shining again.
I guess the sun was like a plot device or something. Thumbelina, the last time you saw the sun was like yesterday. Why is this a big deal for you?
The sun is shining again.
And how about that omniscient choir? Convenient. And that climax is done. Phew, after all that running and cobwebs and more running, I was really worried that all that tension was starting to drag. Now, back to that denouement. Oh my god, are you kidding me?
I found it, I have found it, I find the Veil of the Fairies.
So, despite believing her beloved prince to be dead, Thumbelina hops on Jacquemo's back to... Really, they just now decide to have her jump on... So Jacquemo takes her to the Veil of the Fairies.
It just looks like a patch of ordinary weeds.
Oh, sing, Thumbelina, sing.
So Thumbelina sings, which brings upon the spring because... plot.
This isn't the Veil of the Fairies, and Cornelius is never coming back.
And I'll never let you fall. Will you marry me?
I will.
Well, it's a good thing she followed her heart, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to well, she did. Well, I'm sure following your heart had something to do with this story, so it's okay to make that the official tagline and moral of the film. Oh, and Thumbelina gets her own pair of fairy wings because... well, you know.
I have wings. My very own wings.
And my very own purple flower background. Congratulations, Jodie Benson, you have achieved your final lines. So, to wrap it up, Thumbelina is reunited with her mother off-screen. Yeah, this movie's way too cool for that whole tying up subplots thing. And Cornelius and Thumbelina are married on a rainbow or something, I don't know. Is that what that meant? And just in case you forgot... follow your heart. Did you get that? Follow your heart. It's the moral. Remember, kids, follow your heart, and you too can get off lily pads. And, so yeah, that was Thumbelina. As I said before, the movie was negatively received by everyone. Gene Siskel was quoted on television saying, "I found nothing memorable. It will sell no toys. It will not leave you humming anything as you exit the theater. I found it to be a complete waste of time." And Roger Ebert said in his review, "I can't imagine anyone over the age of 12 finding anything to like about Thumbelina." All in all, Thumbelina suffers from a plodding, unfocused story and a cutesy, annoying execution. But to be fair, Don Bluth has said that his original vision for this movie was much different from the final product, but he was pressured by a studio mandate to conform the screenplay to make it more marketable, and I'm willing to believe that. Thumbelina is cutesy and annoying, but in a way that no person could ever pull it off without doing it intentionally. I think when Mr. Bluth started on this project, it was supposed to be a parody. Now hear me out. Picture the premise. Shallow, bland, stereotypical Disney romantic couple gets transported into the zany, wonderfully weird world of Don Bluth, where characters are focused more on exploitation and the finances of matrimony than evil schemes and nonsensical adventure. Like, when Thumbelina is being all passive and ditzy, I think it's supposed to be funny. And I think the movie wants us to like the antagonists more than the actual leads. And this concept, in and of itself, isn't that bad of an idea. The problem is the execution. The two different movies the film is trying to be mesh just a little too well, and there really isn't much focus on anything. We don't care about Thumbelina or Cornelius because they're shallow and unrelatable, and we don't care about the antagonists because we barely see any of them. There were a lot of chances for this movie to have a lot of interesting characters and funny moments, but the movie has, like, one joke. This one.
Listen, pal, this harassment has gone far enough, and I know my rights. I'll report you to the Pond Patrol.
Humor. But hey, that's just my theory. So what is the problem with Thumbelina from a different perspective? Well, let's look at our heroine and all the things she does. Well, she pines, and she pines some more. Pining. Pining. More pining. Oh, the pining. Compare this to some older Disney princesses like Snow White or Cinderella. These characters didn't do much outside of cooking, cleaning, and just being kind, and most of the time they had their non-human codependents helping them out along the way. But the difference here is that although Snow White and Cinderella don't do much, they still do stuff. Thumbelina does nothing. Even her non-human codependents do nothing. At the end of the movie when Thumbelina gets married, it's just like, aren't you glad she got married? Aren't you just so happy for her? Why should I? I knew she was going to marry Cornelius. Everyone in the audience who wasn't in kindergarten knew she was going to marry Cornelius. Romance storylines in Disney movies typically work because they aren't the main focus. The main focus is how we get to that happy ending, the adventures had and the accomplishments made. But the only thing Thumbelina accomplishes in this movie is racism.
I know, marry you.
And then of course there's... oh god. I think this character might have been part of that whole studio mandate thing I talked about earlier, in that I think Giacomo was sort of a last-minute addition to the screenplay. And when you get down to it, all of the film's problems can be traced back to him. He's annoying, he does nothing, and if we removed him completely from the film, our heroine would be forced by his absence to undertake a more active role. And, of course... oh god... Well, I promised a rant, and a rant I shall give. When you get down to it, follow your heart and nothing is impossible are two completely different morals that have nothing to do with each other, nor do they have anything to do with the actual storyline of the movie. And while Disney is pretty big on the follow your heart narrative, they're much better at applying it through storytelling and characters. For example, Ariel wants to be human, though nobody else supports this dream. However, she defies the naysayers, aka her father, and becomes human, and lives happily ever after, all because she followed her heart. Belle is weird, and her weirdness is frowned upon by her community, but she defies conformity and refuses to marry the egotistical Gaston, and manages to get a happy ending by just being herself, and following her heart. Thumbelina wants non-specific romantic desire, and gets it without having to work for it in any way. She's basically Princess Aurora, but present throughout the whole movie. Also, when you look at it, though Don Bluth may not have intended it, there is a rather original message within the subtext of Thumbelina. Don't sell yourself short, pun not intended. Don't be manipulated. And don't let others decide your destiny for you. These are messages little kids don't get that often. But what do we focus on? Vague inspiration! Overcoming non-specific issues! Follow your heart. Okay, I'm done. Thumbelina isn't the best animated film out there. And honestly, it isn't even that good. But it does have its own shameless charm to it. Who would I recommend this to? Well, I get the feeling that the only people truly capable of enjoying the picture for what it is are small children, so... small children. If you happen to see this one in the store, it's only like $5, so if you're running out of pretty things to show your kids while you cry alone in your room, wondering how you're going to pay that mortgage and put porridge in your bowl, give Thumbelina a try. So I guess I'll see you all in the next review, if there is one. I don't know. And remember everybody, follow your heart and nothing is impossible. Don't know what that means? Don't worry. Nobody does.
Yeah.